the SEC is back to deliver renewable, more affordable, reliable energy. We're investing in wind, solar, and storage, and supporting Victorian homes to switch to electric, helping reduce energy bills, drive down emissions, and create jobs. It's renewable energy, powering Victoria for Victorians. Authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's Power Up session. I'm Jess Christensen, I'm the Partnerships Manager here at the Consumer Energy Solutions for the SEC. Whether you are joining us live or dialing in at home, watching it online via the SEC website, it's great to have you all here. I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that we're joining you from today, which is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to elders past and present, and also pay respects to any other traditional owners from the lands that you're all joining us from. I really want to acknowledge that everything we do is on country, and it's something that we hold very close here at the SEC. So for those of you who haven't seen one of these sessions before, these are our Power Up sessions, and the aim is to provide practical expert advice that we're joined by industry professionals to help Victorians with the switch to all electric. And this is our fourth session. We're focused on heating and cooling for this session, but if you haven't seen our other three sessions, I highly recommend going back and watching them. They're available on the SEC website, and just navigate to our household section. They're well worth the watch and have some great advice and information in them. But this is winter, and today we are talking about heating and cooling your home. I'm sure all of us are thinking more about heating than cooling at the moment, but it won't be long until we're cranking up those air conditioners and also paying those bills that go along with both winter and summer. But switching to electric can save you a lot of money. We know that about 40% of our energy use actually comes from our heating and cooling, and that reflects very heavily in what we pay at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. So today we're going to explore the options and things that you can do at home to switch out your heating and cooling to more efficient electric options. Today I am joined by the lovely Marcella Palmer and Tom Barr. It is very exciting to have these two with us today to give us some really good practical advice. So a little bit of an intro. Marcella is from Goodbye Gas. She's trained in a master's degree in architecture, and Marcella spent 8 years specialising in sustainable electric architecture across single residential, multi-residential and precinct scale projects. Marcella is a founding member of Goodbye Gas, which is a home electrification service with the goal of making home electrification easy and handling all the hard parts, which I know is music to a lot of people's ears because it can be overwhelming. Now 3 years into full operations, Goodbye Gas is heading into its fourth year, and Marcella leads the business operations. And then we've got Tom from Barcon. Tom is a licensed refrigeration and air conditioning technician with nearly 20 years industry experience. Throughout his career, he has worked across a wide range of equipment and sectors, gaining extensive knowledge in both domestic and commercial applications. For the past 10 years, Tom has successfully operated Barcon Air Conditioning, focusing on delivering tailored solutions for residential and commercial clients. Thank you for joining us today, Marcella and Tom. As far as this session goes, we are going to pass to Marcella, who will give us an overview of some of the solutions that are available, the rebates, some of the cost savings and technology out there. But we really are going to answer your questions. So that's what we want to get to. We want to spend as much time answering those burning questions that you have on heating and cooling. You can submit your questions via Slido. So the Slido app is available on your screen. you can scan that QR code, or you can visit slido.com, that's SLIDO.com, and enter the event code, which is SEC2025. Our team will then consolidate the questions as you submit them, so bear with us. We will try and group them into themes today so we can get through as many as possible. First, I'm going to hand over to Marcella to give us a little bit of a high-level information about the best options for heating and cooling our homes, and what technologies are available and why they're good and can save you money.
Thanks, Jess. So there are lots of different options for heating and cooling for your home, especially if you're looking to replace from gas heating and cooling to electric. There are 3 models of heating and cooling that we look at installing as good by gas and with our installers at Barcon. There are split systems, which we all typically know. They're sort of those systems that sit on your wall with the condenser unit outside. There are multi-head split systems, which are those internal units that are all hooked up to one external unit outside. So you could have, say, 4 of those internal units hooked up to one unit outside, and then, of course, electric ducted heating and cooling as the third option. They all have different benefits and different sort of levels of efficiency. Those are the 3 different types that we usually install.
Yeah, great. So, Marcella, how do we choose the right system? You know, we get told a lot of different information. We know that there are differences of options between double story and single story. Can you give us, and potentially Tom can jump in here too, but can you give us a little bit more information around what those options are?
Yeah, absolutely. So understanding your home is definitely the key point. So are you in a single story home? Are you in a double story home? What does access look like for your home? Is it under the floor? Is it in the ceiling? Or do you have none at all? What's your existing heating and cooling setup? Do you have gas ducted? Do you have evaporative cooling? Do you have a gas wall heater? You know, do you have split systems? So we take all of those things into consideration when we look at a system for your home. And the last important thing we actually look at is like your usage. So what are your habits? How many rooms do you need to heat? How many rooms do you need to cool? We want to make sure we're sort of as efficient as possible when making those calls.
Great. I might just ask a question of Tom here. Tom, you've been installing systems for households for a long time. What are some of the questions that people should ask a trade or an installation business before they go ahead with a solution?
So there's a lot of questions that we do get asked. Probably one that we don't so much get asked is just on the design of the system and the heat load. So a big factor on how your system will run is how well it's designed, especially when it comes to ducted air conditioning. So there is a lot of heat loads, airflows that need to be calculated. Rooms as well need to be sized, even for split systems. They need to be sized correctly so that you're not oversizing or undersizing your unit. You'll end up using too much power oversizing it. You'll also spend money that you don't have to spend. Main thing is the design of the system and heat loads on how well it will work.
And what are some of the biggest concerns or myths that you hear from people during your work, and how might you dispel those?
That's a good question.
I can go first on that. So probably one myth we hear sometimes, especially with ducted, is people will tell me, I've got a ducted heater, so I want to reuse the ductwork. And a lot of times, well, you can't really. You've got to replace it. There is one system where you can reuse that ductwork, but even then, its efficiency in cooling isn't as good as a well-designed, proper reverse cycle system. So there's probably that myth is over ductwork and reusing the existing ductwork.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits in looking at your ductwork as well, just to check that it's clean, that it's working properly, there are no holes in it, something to sort of keep an eye on.
Can I maybe say that when I got my gas ducted replaced with split systems, I was astounded by how much it reduced the dust in my home. Now, I don't know what that's saying about my system, but it was one of the, unforeseen benefits that I found. And also just, the fact that now the heat doesn't escape up into the roof.
Yeah.
So when I am running those split systems, it feels like the home warms up and stays warm a lot more. So are there other kind of not unintended, but unforeseen benefits that people may not think about when they're switching, particularly gas appliances out for electric?
There's probably another one that I would add in there that I often find people tell us is with gas heating, you'll often find, especially older systems, when they turn on, the air comes out at 60 degrees. It overheats, shoots over the temperature by 1-2 degrees in the house, and then turns off. And then it waits for it to cool down by another 2-3 degrees, and then it kicks in again, and you've got 60 degree air blasting on you. And it's not a consistent temperature. What we find is a lot of people, when they swap over to air conditioning and heat pumps for heating, is that it will, because of inverter technology, it ramps up and down its capacity. So it will ramp up and down the temperature of the air and keep a much more consistent temperature where it might not ever switch off, but it's running at a very low capacity and just ticking over and just keeping that house warm instead of hot, cold, like an old gas heater system does.
I can relate to that, definitely.
Yeah.
So I just want to pick up something that you both said and maybe clarify for both myself and for the audience, is you mentioned heat pumps, and I know that we now talk about heat pumps in terms of our hot water, but are heat pumps what we're installing in our homes when we talk about split systems? Is that also a heat pump technology?
Yeah, that's also a heat pump technology. For all of the systems that we've spoken about, so the typical split systems, multi-heads and ducted systems, they're all heat pump technology, the same as a heat pump hot water system. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you for that. The other thing that I know people are really interested in is the rebates that are available, and this can be really confusing. So could you both help to navigate what rebates and incentives are available for replacing gas appliances and gas heating and cooling with efficient electric, and how do people access these rebates?
It's a great question. So there are a few rebates across sort of the whole home electrification area, I guess. For heating and cooling, there's one. It's the VEEC rebate, so it's run by the Victorian government. Basically, all installers should be signed up and able to provide you these rebates. They should be on your quote up front. And then it's sort of the installer's responsibility to make sure that they've documented everything properly and that they're able to give you that rebate. There are lots of different things that play into how much you'll get or what system you're installing, that sort of stuff. So you typically need to be replacing an existing gas system or apparently electric as well, which Tom can speak to too. And you need to be replacing that with an efficient electric alternative that is approved by the VEU. But Tom, I'll throw to you for the different types of systems.
Yeah, so just to add to what Marcella said, most people know there is rebates on removing gas appliances. So that's not just your gas ducted heater, that's if you've got an old wall furnace as well, you do get rebates on that. So the VEEC's certificate or number of certificates or the price, essentially what goes back to the customer, does vary on what you're installing and what you're removing. So to add to that as well, though, there are rebates which aren't as well known on even split systems, replacing split systems like for like. So if you have an old end-of-life system or maybe a cooling-only older system, there are some rebates on those, replacing those. And also electric element underfloor heating, there is also rebates on replacing those as they are inefficient in heating your home. So it's not just gas it's not just gas appliances that you get rebates on. There are other rebates as well.
And Tom, some of these can be, thousands and thousands of dollars that people can get back. Is that right? So it really does make a difference into the upfront cost of people's systems?
Yeah, Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Great. So before we open it to audience Q&A, we've heard that there are a lot of things to consider and it does get very complicated, and we're just talking about heating and cooling today. We're not even talking about all of the other aspects of home electrification. And the SEC is really helping Victorians to streamline this process to go all electric and realise the savings of an efficient electric home by building a one-stop shop. That includes all of the information and advice that you need no matter what stage of the process that you're at, and also connects you through to trusted SEC endorsed installers who can do those home upgrades for you when you're ready. And we have just opened our expression of interest for installation and trades businesses across Victoria to apply to work with us. We're extremely excited. So any great trades businesses on the call today that is listening in, please go to our website if you'd like to apply. We'd love to hear from you. And you can do that on the households page at the SEC website. If you go to the home planner page, there's an application form. So we're very excited. We love working with industry, and as you hear, there's a wealth of experience and information that is out there for you to help on the journey. But now we are going to open up to Q&A, and first we'll just watch a quick 15-second video.
The SEC is supporting Victorian homes to switch to electric. You can save money while reducing emissions. Visit secvictoria.com.au. SEC, powering Victoria for Victorians. Authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
Okay, so we've got a question here, which is better, split systems in each room or a central ducted reverse system?
Do you want to answer that one, Marcia?
I'll answer broadly. Yeah. From an efficiency perspective, definitely the split system, so the individual splits in each room. Ducted, while it's very efficient, does lose some of its efficiency with the travel of the airflow. That's kind of my understanding. Tom, anything to add?
No, that's perfect. Yep.
Thank you.
How can I replace my gas ducted heating with an electric option? And you mentioned, can I use my existing ducts? But I guess a little bit more information from you about why can't you use those existing ducts?
Yeah.
And how does the process then work if I want to switch to an electric option?
Yeah, so there's two main reasons why you can't reuse your existing gas ductwork. Number one is generally the installation isn't compliant. So ductwork in the ceiling has to have a rating of R1.5. Under the 4 it can be R1. And then most gas ducted heaters are installed with just R1, so it will generally be non-compliant installation. And then the second one is the airflows on air conditioning is greater than gas heating. So we need larger ductwork to allow for the greater airflows to allow for that heating capacity. Sometimes if you have an add-on cooler, you may be able to, but generally if you've only got gas ducted heating, that ductwork needs to be replaced. It's not the end of the world. It's generally at end of life and should be replaced anyway. Like we were saying about the dust, they've often been running for 10 years without a filter and there's dust all through them. So it's probably a good time to replace it anyway.
Thank you. How do I size a system for my home? How do I know what the right size split system is, or what the right size heating and cooling system is, depending on my circumstances?
Can we answer that one? Absolutely. All right. So your heat load is variable, so it does depend on what the house is. What the house is like. If you've got insulation, if you've got high ceilings, there's many factors. There's a rough rule of 150 watts per square metre, but that can change depending on what the house is like, your insulation, whether you have large windows, north facing, many factors. So you could go off a rough estimation of 150 watts per square metre, but generally you do need someone to come in to size that correctly.
Thank you. How can I run my heating and cooling efficiently to save on my bills?
Great question. I think one of the things to look out for is when you're using your heating and cooling. So if you've got a well-insulated house and say you have Wi-Fi control on your heating and cooling, if you can use it when electricity prices are not expensive, so on trough times, so that's usually during the day. So you can like preheat or pre-cool your home before you get home, or turn it on sort of in the afternoon. Heat the house up, cool the house, and then turn it off when prices peak. So that's typically when people get home, so from 6 till 9 p.m. So lots of that is sort of around, like sort of loading when you use your power. If you have solar, that's obviously different. And then again, if you have battery, that's different as well. So if you use your power when the sun's shining and you've got solar, fantastic. And then if you've got battery, you can obviously use it when the sun's down as well and you're still drawing from your battery.
That's great advice. Thank you. Do you have any kind of guidance around the types of brands or what to look for when you're choosing, a brand or a company for a heating and cooling system? Are there particular aspects that you would look for or recommend?
Yeah. For that, I would generally say to stick with brands that are well known. There are some rebate brands that have come out that are just covered under the VAU, but we generally say to stick to those well-known brands, the Daikins, the Mitsubishis, the Fujitsus, and they've been around for, some of them for 80, 100 years or something. So they're not going to be going out of business anytime soon.
Right. So we talk a lot about household options for households, but what if I'm a renter or I live in an apartment? What are the options that are available for me in those situations?
Good question. There are new standards that are coming out in 2027 that say that each living room of a rental property needs to be heated and cooled. Originally it was just heated, so it has to be heated with an efficient heating system, so a split system. But now there's also cooling coming in, so something to keep an eye on for rental standards. And then you'd need to speak to your landlord, obviously, to have those installed. But yes, you do need to have a compliant heating and cooling system in your living room as of March 2027.
Great. So this one has come in around, and it sort of builds off the question that we've had about the gas ducted and switching to electric. But this is about, this person has floor ducts for gas heating. Can floor ducts be used for electric heating? This person says that they don't really want holes in the ceiling as well as the floor.
Yeah, 100%. You can use your underfloor, or you can have your reverse cycle system under your floor. I have it at my house. It is a great way, and I generally say in Melbourne to do it that way because you've then got the heat coming from the floor, which is better than from the ceiling, and we probably use our heating a lot more than our cooling in Melbourne. There is one restriction on it to do with the refrigerant gases being flammable. So it does have to have a refrigerant sensor, so there is some brands that do have that refrigerant sensor in the system, but otherwise it's very safe, and I would highly recommend going under your floor if you do have the room.
Great. Now I've got one about evaporative cooling. So this person has evaporative cooling and they're happy with that, but they want a better heating system. So is a split system better than gas? And if so, how much more economic is it to run? And I assume this person has a ducted gas system if they've got evaporative. Yeah.
I can sort of do a high-level answer. Yeah, if you've got gas, assuming there's gas underfloor ducted heating, those systems, depending on how old they are, have about a 90% efficiency rate, which sounds really high, but then you compare that to something like a split system that does heating and cooling that has up to a 400% efficiency rate. So when you look at that difference, yes, 100% a split system is going to be more effective than a gas underfloor ducted system, and especially a split system as opposed to ducted.
Yeah, so there was, I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
There was, Dakin recently brought out a efficiency comparing 5 kilowatt to a gas wall heater
Yep.
On a split system, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's about 50% cheaper to run
Yep.
than a gas wall heater for a
Yep.
split system.
That's really terrific. So we've covered off some of the costs and rebates about switching. Do you have any guidance around, the average home and what they might need in terms of, and what kind of cost range people might be looking at? Maybe give a couple of examples. I know it's really hard because everyone's different.
Yeah. I'm thinking of 3 examples and then we can sort of talk to those, Tom. One of them is installing a split system in a main living area. The other is installing a multi-head system to multiple rooms, so say 3 bedrooms and a main living space. And then the final one would be installing sort of an average ducted system, which say 8 vents. And then you'd be replacing a gas item, I suppose. So should we give examples for those?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you go.
All right.
We'll start with this with the split system to the living room.
So split system in the living room. If you're removing, say, a gas wall heater instead of so it does depend on what you're removing. Say we're removing a gas wall heater, you'll be looking somewhere in the like 1,500 to 3,000. It just depends on the install, the size, and what we're removing. So for a multi-head, about 4 units or something. Yeah. So once again, you'll probably be. It depends on what you're removing, and what you're installing, the brands, and what's going in, and how hard the install is. Could be anywhere from like the 3,000 to 8,000 mark. It depends on capacity and everything like that. And then ducted systems, they're the larger ones. So once again, it depends on what's going in and out. But you're somewhere sort of in that for an 8 vent. Probably in the 8,000 to 12,000 mark, depending on what brands we're putting in.
And that's including rebates.
Yeah, that's after rebates. Yeah.
Perfect. And now we're running out of time. There's been lots of questions. I know this is a hot topic. Pardon the pun. That was actually accidental. But sorry, audience. But I just want to close with a final question to both of you. If there's one thing that you want people to take away from this session, what would that be today? Marcella, I'll start with you.
Ask questions. If you're not sure about something, definitely ask the expert, ask the trade. They're, I'm sure, always happy to answer. And also ask at Goodbye Gas. We're always happy to answer questions because we understand that it's a tricky process and you want to make sure you're getting the right system for your home and for your needs.
Thank you. Great idea. Tom?
Pretty much on top of that, to ask questions on the trade, on how they're designing it, what their heat loads are, even what their experience is, how long they've been doing it. Have you done this before? Like, just ask those questions, because you want to know what they're doing. So yeah.
Thank you both so much for providing us with your expertise. I feel like we could have talked on this all day. So many questions around this topic, and it is so complex for people to navigate. We do thank everyone who's tuned in to watch. You can go back and watch this. This will be available online, or if there's someone that you want to share it with, please do so. Our next session topic is going to be very exciting. It's one on induction cooking, and I love my induction cooktop, but I know that there are plenty of people out there who have all different preferences for how they cook. So we are going to be unpacking some of the key information on induction, and even maybe showing you what it's like to cook with induction. You can visit us at any time at the SEC Victoria website and go to our household page, and it will provide you with a whole bunch of information and advice on going electric at home. But for now, we're looking forward to working with everyone to help Victoria on this transition to renewable, affordable, reliable energy. And until next time, we'll say goodbye.